Dolphins fan. Let's go!
You're listening to Fin Too Deep.
Tua back to throw. Blitz coming. They get to him. No, he takes off running. And he's in. Touchdown, Miami.
With the sixth pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Jalen Waddle.
Giving you unfiltered, informed, and controversial takes on the Miami Dolphins and the NFL Draft. Here's Reason and Neal.
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? Neal, I was just thinking, we kind of live up to that, controversial takes. I mean, we can see the blowback we've gotten a little bit on our Wilkins takes. Draft, we talking about the draft all season long, and we're about to ramp it up tonight. Man, we really live up to that intro, don't we, Neal? Welcome everyone back as we dive Fin Too Deep for another episode. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Neal Driscoll. It's our favorite time, one of our favorite times of the years, next to first day of training camp, first day the pads come on, first preseason game, and regular season opener. I mean, it's right up there. Neal, a couple days away, man. Usually our normal time slot, Thursday, reserved for night one of the draft, Tuesday tonight. we got a good one, man. We got a lot of stuff to cover, some draft-centric topics, but the main gem, right, the creme de la creme of the show tonight is our hand-picked, no simulator used. Each of us have done a 3-round mock draft, Neil. So how you feeling tonight?
It's the most wonderful time of the year, despite finding out that I potentially have $2,200 in car work that I have to get done this week. Everything else is peaches, rainbows, and sunshine. But I think, this is it. And, we're 48 hours away from, draft season coming to its, to its peak and its pinnacle here. And, you're starting to see, I think, a lot of things point what the Dolphins are looking to do. And, we've been kind of consistent on saying that offensive line, tight end, and running back were 3 positions that we really thought the Dolphins are heading toward. And I feel like we're seeing a lot of that. And, it makes me excited because those are positions in this draft that are strengths, even though you've heard me say this is the worst draft I've ever covered. But it also, another thing that happened this week is we have a new foe in the division. I have a new least favorite player in football. And, I know that Jets fans are taking their victory laps, but welcome to the AFC's Aaron Rodgers. You're not going to see the likes of the Chicago Bears and Detroit Lions. It's not going to be the cakewalk that you're accustomed to, which you only won 1 Super Bowl during your whole career for Mr. being one of the best ever. And I put that in quotes.
He's a cakewalk.
Well, and in all seriousness, Aaron Rodgers is a great quarterback, but at the end of the day, at the end of the day, last year in Green Bay, I'd argue he had more talent overall than he's going to with this Jets roster. I think they gave up way more in the picks than they should have. I think they overpaid by taking that full contract.
Because that conditional's turning into a first. He's playing 65% of those snaps, Neil.
Well, you have 2 years, and if you don't win a Super Bowl during those years, it's one of the worst trades in Jets history.
You don't think he's going to walk away after year 1 because there's no longer $60 million on the table?
Yeah, he could. Aaron Rodgers is the weirdest dude there. He might walk away after 2 games. If we play him week 1, he might not come back for week 2. You never know. So, nothing surprises me with Aaron Rodgers. But, I actually think it's good for the Dolphins if people are going to say you're crazy. But, man, maybe this says Chris Greer sitting at a table right now being like, man, now it's time to go make that extra move. If we think we could do it before, now it might be time to go make that move. So, welcome to the division. I still think the Jets are the 3rd best team. We talked about it before we went on. They downgraded at receiver to me from Elijah.
Bro, they did all that to battle the Bills for who finishes behind the Dolphins in the AFC. Right. Bravo.
Yeah, bring in Randall Cobb and cut Corey Davis. There's another downgrade. You have 2 overpaid, overrated tight ends that aren't going to do anything.
Remember when they gave Corey Davis all that money? I said that to someone yesterday. Do you remember a time when they gave Corey Davis all that money too? And we're like, what?
Awful.
Because honestly, I said this to you. I guess he wasn't that happy, and that's why they eventually made the move. But Elijah Moore, to me, I'd be more afraid of Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson than Garrett Wilson, Cole Hardman, and Alan Lazard. I'm sorry. I hate to be the one to tell you.
I would have loved to have Elijah Moore as the number 3 on this football team.
Yeah, that guy's dynamic. Or okay, McCole Hardman. Okay, vertical line, speed play. He's just a vertical player. That's all he is. What's Alan Lazard? What? Because him and what's it called? Aaron Rodgers smoked Chiba together in these little huts or something. I don't know. Like what his little buddy. Other than that, what are you? I'll tell you this much. They downgraded big time by letting us have Braxton Berrios, and they took Alan Lazard. I'll be the first one. Wait till people see. People are, and I love this Braxton Berrios. I'm going to keep harping on it. Wait till people see Braxton Berrios this year. Wait, that he is the perfect target for Tua Tagovailoa. The work that man's putting in right now, I'm telling you, Braxton Berrios is going to – and he never had a quarterback. Who's throwing him the football in New York? Now he's got Tua Tagovailoa. They would have been better off keeping him than getting Alan Lazard. I honestly believe that.
Well, you'll see these things that are up, those graphics I've seen where they're comparing receiving cores. And look, I think Garrett Wilson's a great football player.
I do. That's it.
But he's not better than Tyreek Hill, and he's not better than Jalen Waddle.
Nope.
And honestly, it's not even close. He never played. I mean, like Tyreek's a unicorn. You can't even. The only receiver I'll listen that's in his game in his ballpark is Justin Jefferson. Even Devontae Adams to me, I'm like, he's
you're 3. He's 3.
He's like 3.
Yeah.
Waddle is so much better than Garrett Wilson. And I'm not just saying this because this is a Dolphins podcast.
I agree.
Like Jalen Waddle is just, it's just the facts. Like, so.
Well, I think Jameson Williams, you kind of blended their names there. Jameson Williams, when he gets healthy, might be better than Garrett Wilson. But
he stops gambling on football, but
yeah.
But no, the Jets have made their team better, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I agree, 110%.
But they have to win now, and what they
didn't move the needle for us. That's what you're basically getting at. They didn't move the needle for us, right? Is that what you're trying to say?
And the guy that we heard this year was better than Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields was Zach Wilson, right? And then he was the biggest flop in the history of the football in that last season. There is no confidence left in that kid's heart. Even if the Jets. You can't fault the Jets for getting Aaron Rodgers because Wilson didn't show anything, but shame on them for taking Zach Wilson at number 2 because it was a horrible pick when they made it. I said that was Kyle Bowler 2.0 as soon as they took him. People were trying to say that he was Patrick Mahomes because he could throw sidearm. And I'm like there's a lot more that makes Patrick Mahomes than the angles he throws off of. But hey man, I'm excited because. Iron sharpens iron. The Dolphins,
Can I add something to this, though? Can I add something? Because we've only compared them offensively. But let's compare them defensively. Ramsey and Xavier Howard is better than their cornerback combo when you face off with us, and I'll tell you why. Brother, listen, the only way Sauce Gardner was keeping up with Tyreek was he's getting super handsy. And then, listen, if it wasn't for piss poor quarterback play we had because Tua wasn't around, if you go back and watch the film, because I know you're one of those guys just like EM that'll watch games multiple times. Waddle was giving Sauce the work all game. He just wasn't getting thrown to, bro. If you put Tua in those scenarios, we would have Waddle would have had 200-yard games on Sauce, and we wouldn't even have it, and it probably would have wrecked his odds of being. People would have pointed to that game and taken away the defensive player of the year. It would have hurt his chances. Dude, you go back and you watch those games and Waddle was just screaming, wasn't literally, but with the routes he was running and how open he was getting and the separation he was creating, the guy was just screaming for the football to be thrown at him. And, enter backup quarterback name here. We saw it with Brissett, right? Even when Jacoby Brissett came in with relief, what would happen? In 2021, Waddle would all of a sudden disappear. Remember, we had this conversation on Fin Too Deep way back. I've had this conversation with EM because I brought this point up. People tried to make it look like Waddle was Tua's safety blanket last year when Jacoby proved that no, it seems like Tua was Waddle's safety blanket. It's the other way around because look at Tyreek and Waddle. They had 15 touchdowns between the two of them this year. Bridgewater and Skylar Thompson had plenty of chances to throw them one, yet all 15 came from the left hand of God. Not their right arms. What does that tell you? But Neal, I thought the receivers make the quarterback. Just like after today, I thought if you're a franchise quarterback like Joe Burrow, you don't get a 5th-year option. You get a big, massive extension. What are the Bengals doing, Neal? Oh my God, do they not believe in Joe Burrow, Neal?
Right. Well, it's funny you say that, man, because I literally was just going to say the same thing. Those Tua detractors, and someone did piss in my Cheerios today because I am a little.
Let's go, Neal.
I'm a little frustrated with the disrespect that Tua's getting from the national media. I think it's laughable.
Greeny,
that's out today. Everyone's hyping Trevor Lawrence like he's the second coming. Tua was better than him last year.
I know. On less games.
And Lamar Jackson is sitting out of Baltimore, and he's 0-2 against Tua. That's what I'll keep going back to. Head-to-head, Lamar's played awesome against us.
But he deserves more than $200 million guaranteed, Neal.
But everyone will say who's a Tua detractor. Well, he has Tyreek and Waddle. Well, look at their stats without Tua. There's harmony there. That's what makes that connection special. Is that it's bi-directional. It's not just a one-way relationship. Why do you think every film you see from Nick Hicks that goes up there right now is those three guys together training? Because they are tied to the hip. They work well together. I truly believe if you ask Tyreek Hill, hey, Tyreek, you could pick any quarterback, and maybe he would take Mahomes over Tua, but that's any other quarterback. I truly believe that Tyreek Hill would take Tua over any other quarterback in football. And that, whether he's right or wrong, That's the type of mentality you want. That's why the connection is so special. Sure, Tua benefits from having Tyreek Hill. Do you think that Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Devontae Adams don't help their quarterbacks put up statistics? Do you think Joe Montana didn't get help from a guy named Jerry Rice? Like,
and Terrell, well, that was more young.
When you try that hard to prove that somebody's not worthy, you're just showing that you know they're worthy. Like, that's
exactly.
Like, you know, it's one of those things. It's like when you call out a sick on a Friday because, you know, you're watching the draft and you're hungover and you tell your boss, yeah, you know, I was up diarrhea at 3 o'clock in the morning. I threw up at 5 o'clock. Your boss gonna be like, dude, I know you're lying. You're too descriptive. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's one of those things that
right.
like, I like the timeline, and I've stayed away for 2 days because I don't want to get baited into taking that next level. I don't want to let Frank take on the stage, but like, it is mind-boggling. And the Dolphin fans that jump.
Did you say you don't want to let the Frank the Tank out of the cage?
Yeah, but the Dolphin fans, like that one rat guy that you put a picture on, like the guys that freaking feed off of that stuff are the biggest losers on the app. Like, they're the biggest losers on Twitter. I'm sorry, but like, they sit there and all they are on a mission, on a witch hunt to like try to make Tua not worthy to be the quarterback of the Dolphins. If you're a Dolphins fan, like, who do you want? You want Gus Frerotte back? You want Damon Heward? Do you want Dante Culpepper doing this dumb shit when he's throwing picks and getting more knee surgeries and touchdowns? Like, I just, it's to a point where these people like either jump on the bandwagon to be a Dolphins fan,
exactly, or
go to Jacksonville. And go.
No, I got a question for you. Can I ask a question for you? I got a question for you because I fielded this to EM, and me and you have in-depth football conversations privately like this too. So I want to ask you this: all these detractors, all these haters, okay, we all sit here and look at our rosters right now, and all these people that are continually the negative Nancys and the Debbie Downers, okay? Listen, I'm not here to say whether anyone has the right to fan or how they fan. But do they really deserve, if we win the AFC Championship this year, do they really deserve to, you know, if Tua's lights out and Tyreek and these guys are lights out and McDaniel, because have you noticed the Tua haters are also the Flores believers who still, they try and look for anything against McDaniel too. There's usually a correlation there. Do they, you see all these people continuously, bro, there's people out here spitting narratives when the analytics and the metrics have come out. You've seen Skylar Thompson was the least efficient quarterback in the NFL, and it wasn't even close. The guy almost fell off the chart. It was so low throughout the NFL. I know you saw that chart that went around, that EPA chart, and there's people out here who hate Tua so much that are still trying to spin the narrative that he balled in the Jets game or that he was good against the Buffalo Bills. Like, are you freaking, like, that's how driven do those people who are so, because I'll tell you this much, they're putting their hate over the logo. As much as they try to say Tuaneers put Tua over the logo, they're putting their hate for this kid over the logo. And I'll even do you one better. They're exactly what they hate the most. They're more Tuaneers than the Tuaneers they claim. Me and you are guys who believe in Tua. All right. People want to label us Tua stands just because we believe in the kid and we have the whole, and you know, I backed it up with film the whole time of this, that, etc. And he needs this, he needs that. All that came to fruition. Here we are. Okay. But we're Tua stands just because we know how to watch film and we know the game and crap like that. And we've seen the flashes of the kid. But these guys talk about the kid more than we do, bro. They're more Tuaneers than the Tuaneers they hate because all they do is talk about it. They do spaces for 12 hours a day talking about the guy. They do panels on YouTube for 7-8 hours talking about the guy. It's ridiculous, bro. Like, well, there's some people out here, we're in the middle of draft season, Neil. They're not even doing draft content. They're doing QB tiers and they're doing Tua videos and how Jalen Hurts' money affects him and all this kind of, like, what? And Brady, they're still trying to bring up the Brady stuff because of that little clip that came out last week. Like, that's where these people are at, bro. Instead of informing the fans, they're so driven by their hate. Do they even deserve to, if we win something significant with this roster, do they even deserve?
Well, you know what, Reason? I've been to the games. I've seen the Dolphins win. The game in Baltimore, man, here when the Dolphins came back and beat the Ravens, man, there was a huge contingency of Dolphin fans. Like, dude, you're literally you're lifting grown men that you never met in the world up in the air, like freaking flipping out like you won the lottery, and it's such an amazing feeling. And, I think there are going to be a lot of those big pivotal wins that are going to happen in the next year. And, it's funny, those guys that are the detractors, right? They're doing their talking now when there's no football going on. They find all the things that they think they could poke about Tua, and they talk in the offseason, and then he proves them wrong, and they're quiet for 9-10 weeks. And then as soon as he gets a concussion, they come out like, this is what we want. No, this is what we told you. This is what we warned you. Everyone on Twitter has got a PhD now. Everyone knows everything. But I will tell you this. You'll see them, and, they'll jump, on the other side of the fence and act like they were there all along. There's a couple of them, man, that I try to be a nonviolent guy, but there are going to be some figure 4 leg locks that I'm going to give out if I see any of these people out. There's a couple. There's 2 or 3 guys on my radar, particularly that it's not what they say, it's how they say it, and how deep. And it's not even just directed at me. How some of these people had
talked to other fans, bro. It's ridiculous.
It's just disrespectful. You see a lot of sexist comments against women, acting like they don't know sports because all that kind of stuff is stuff I just don't stand for. I'm not. I'll tell you this. What makes me is I'm wrong more than I'm right, and I have no problem being wrong. You know what I mean? That's okay. But when you start taking jabs and hitting people personally, like all that stuff, man, like there's no place for that. Like Twitter's supposed to be a fun atmosphere. There's spaces that I go into that I love to go into because everyone's talking about the Dolphins. We're collaborating, talking about getting better.
There are great spaces in our community.
And then there's other spaces where I go in and literally it's 40 hours. They talk more about Tua in that context natively than I do anything in my life. There's nothing I do, sleep, work, more than they sit in that space and talk. And it's very interesting to me. It's like, you cheer for this team. You probably buy the gear. You watch every game. Like, what is your goal? He's not going away. Like, could you imagine what Twitter would have been like with Jay Fiedler at quarterback? Could you imagine?
No, no way. But this is what I fielded to someone, Neal, so I'll field it to you. What are they going to do if he balls out this year and they get ahead of it? Because that feels like what they would do if he balls out this year. They'll probably try and get ahead out of an extension. What are they going to do if he locks down a 5-year deal and now we're facing him for another 6 years? They're going to do this. Once you do, listen, if you're a content creator, if whatever, if you do this, you want to do this song and dance after an extension, you're going to get drowned out, and you're going to be the own reason. You're going to be your own reason of why you sink to the bottom of the sea. You know what I mean?
He was going to have his best season of his career this year. This isn't a prediction. This is a spoiler, right? All Paul Heyman talk. He's going to have the best season of his career. He's going to stay healthy, and they're going to try to have to find something else to hate. Like, whether you like it or not, the best 3 quarterbacks in football for my money right now are Mahomes, Burrow, and Josh Allen. Tua was the first alternate in the Pro Bowl, and I know the Pro Bowl voting is not anything, but it kind of is when you think about it, because a lot of people think it's just a fan vote. No, the players and coaches.
Well, they changed it now that they've let the players and the coaches. Yeah.
It's weighted differently than it's been in years past. It's not just the popularity contest for fans. So it's a lot different. And Tua's the first. If you're telling me Tua's the 4th or 5th best quarterback in the AFC, and that puts him at 6th, no worse than 7th in the NFL. And I truly believe so. Tua's the 7th or 8th best quarterback in football right now. That's
where a lot of credible rankings are coming out right now and have him around that spot.
Right. If you have Deshaun Watson rated over him alpha last year, you're wrong. He's one that said I thought Deshaun Watson.
Well, they're the same people that are saying Lamar Jackson's worth $200 million because he won an MVP 4 years ago.
But I think we could beat this with a hammer all night. The bottom line is he is our quarterback.
You know what? Well, yeah. Hey, hold on. The Tua detractors want to bring in Lamar Jackson because he's worth $200 million because he was an MVP 4 years ago. But people who believe in Tua or Tua-neers aren't allowed to talk about Tua's national championship throw against Georgia because that was 4 years ago. Figure that one out.
2019 was a long time ago, and
I'm just saying, bro. Like, if it works both ways here. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying, dude.
But the bottom line is we could talk about it. It's good for a podcast. It's good for YouTube TV to listen and all that good stuff. At the end of the day, none of those rankings matter. If Tua can go out there,
I didn't know this,
and go win football games.
Did you see that?
In the AFC, huh?
I didn't know that. I don't know about that though. But okay, anyways, continue.
That probably means, look, even if Colin Cowherd had him 8th in the AFC, he's a top 10 quarterback on Cowherd's rating. Who else in the NFC besides Jalen Hurts is anyone rating high? I mean, who else is even in the NFC as a quarterback? Like, we jump on Brock Purdy for 5 games, but Tua can't have 10 games at MVP level and get a, it's Tua's the quarterback. He puts us in chance to win. And this off season, the Dolphins had every avenue to move off of him. They had the concussion story. They had Tom Brady knocking at the door. They had Lamar Jackson practically begging to come to Miami. They had Derek Carr out there. They doubled down. Not only did they say Tua as a guy this year, they gave the 5th-year option. Like, it's not a point that, like, I just wanted to say that today because I think, you see that timeline and you see all these graphics, Albert Breer, and guys that I respect for their coverage of football, but like, even like Dan Orlovsky, who I think is one of the best in the business. I'm like, come on, guys. You're talking about every quarterback practically but Tua, like, and then you're going to get on TV and say the reason you don't have him is because of concussions. You're an analyst. You're not a neuro doctor. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like,
so
talk with the facts. Sorry, but
no, you're right. You're wrong.
The good news is that we're only 2 days away from adding something, because I think we all agree it's either going to be someone who's protecting Tua, a running back that's helping Tua, or a tight end that's catching. So,
the sleeper is defensive tackle. The sleeper still remains. Because I didn't drop my man crush list today. I'm going to drop it tomorrow, one day before the draft. But, man, I'm telling you, man, just diving further into that defensive tackle class, man, I fell in love with, obviously Jalen Carter, but Keanu Benton is just.
He's a hot name in Miami from what I've heard. And then the steam on Tucker Kraft is really rising.
The problem is, I don't think in speaking privately with Ryan yesterday after we went live, I don't think Tucker Kraft's going to be there at 84 if that's their plan.
Do you think that, because there's people, I saw somebody, and I forget who it was on Twitter, who's credible.
Because he said something to me privately, and then I saw it publicly, and it was basically, he said to me when we were off screen, and then he actually said, I might have said it when we were on screen too, but he did say it off screen. He said, that's your day 2 Michael Mayer.
Well, someone said there wasn't much of a difference between Kraft and Mayer, and I want to dig it up because it was a credible guy who posted it, and I think he said he heard it directly from a GM. So if that's the case, if that's your guy, then take him at 51. Who cares if my draft?
He's good. He was my tight end 5, and the only reason he wasn't 4 is because Dalton's such a good pass catcher. If Kincaid wasn't such an elite pass catcher, then Tucker probably would have been 4 for me.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of smoke, a lot of fire out there. There's going to be a lot of misinformation too, right? Like, there's going to be that out there. Bro. But this tight end class, it's special.
I don't know if you went back and watched that, Neil, but I know I felt like chiming in on a bunch of people today. Maybe I'll chime in tomorrow on it or clip it up and put it out. But let alone what he told me privately, the tidbits of what Ryan dropped publicly about DeJuan Jones. I don't know, brother. I don't know, dude. It's got Mekhi Becton vibes all over it again, dude. And the guy, when NFL coaches were mad that he didn't weigh in and it was a personal decision. And when you got, Ryan Roberts said publicly on the show yesterday that DeJuan Jones said straight to him, listen, he told him, I'm playing football because I couldn't play basketball. And there's a lot of question about whether he loves the game enough, and you're about to get into that real grind. And if you don't love the game, brother, Tua loves the game. You could tell with what that kid's been through. He could have walked away so many times, but he truly loves the game. DeJuan Jones, we don't know if he loves the game. And when you got weight issues and we don't know if you love the game, that's oof.
Well, the draft, right? There's 256 picks. There's probably 20 sure things and then 236 lottery tickets in the draft. That's how it works. Like DeJuan Jones, I have him ranked really high. My 14th overall player.
Off talent, of course.
But
yes,
his floor is a guy, Mekhi Becton, Isaiah Wilson type, right?
Yeah, that's what's scary, huh?
He might be an Orlando Brown Jr., but the odds are more likely that he'll regress to the bottom than the top if he doesn't have the desire to be that. So
yeah,
that's where, like, for me, like, in hearing that, like, I saw what I saw on DeJuan on tape, but I don't want a guy that doesn't love football. Like, that's what, Reason, the thing that's changed in the last 2 years with the Miami Dolphins, to me, is that we used to have a lot of guys that got paid here. They didn't necessarily love football, but Miami was cool. No state taxes. They'll pay me. Remember what I told you about Will Fuller's agent said? The reason he took Miami was because he knew he was going to get paid there, right?
Yep.
Like that, to me, is the thing that's the night and day difference under this Mike McDaniel coaching staff is that people love football here. Like I like the work that we've seen because we all have social media. We're all connected to Nick Hicks, and he gives us a glimpse into what's going on, right? And a lot of players that utilize them. Like I've never seen personally players on the Miami Dolphins start working as soon as the season ended. And it's so visualized. And I'm not saying that it never happened. Like a guy like Zach Thomas reminds me of a guy that is probably on vacation with his kids. They're running around Disney World and he's on his phone reading watching film or something. You know what I mean? Like Zach Thomas is old school. He diagnosed film all the time. But like I've never seen it where so many people on the team are committed. Like we have, voluntary workouts. Everybody comes. Like I think it's really special, the locker room that's here. And Mike McDaniel's a big piece of that, man. But like that, you're not wrong. There's going to be players that are ranked high that have bad character, and it happens.
Yeah, and they're going to drop, right? Like you made when you're talking earlier about. I meant to make this point earlier. First of all, when you're talking about names, continuing off Rice and Montana, Young with Rice and Terrell Owens, right? But anyways, on top of what you said about Hill and Waddle working out with Tua, and that's why. And who's right there with him? Eric Izakama. Look at the work. Eric Izakama is right there with those boys that perform, working every day with Tua. He's learning how to work through Waddle and Hill, and he's building that chemistry with Tua. That's why I think Eric is like, listen, Cedric's not going to be here, bro. I do not see him with. I see the work Izakama's putting in. We see the work Braxton's working with Waddle and his footwork coach.
Robbie Anderson's over, buddy. Great crowd. Yeah. There's no way. Cedric Wilson's fun. And it's going to be a team that, like, when they say they're going to take care of the player, that makes me think that there's a real opportunity. He goes back to Dallas. Right by him. Yeah. He'd go back to Dallas. Yeah. He'd be
Dallas is probably saying, let's see how the draft works out. Right. And then, if we don't get a guy we like, we'll keep him in mind. We won't reach on anyone because we'll keep Cedric in mind, basically,
Right. And I think that's a good move. I mean, if you get a 5th round, 6th round pick for Cedric Wilson, and then you save that $5 to $6 million in cap space, to me, that's a huge win, man, because then you're leaving draft weekend with $9 million. Your class is about $3 million to sign. So say you have 6 that carry over with 13.6 coming free. You're going to have $20 million after June 1st to go buy ingredients to shore up this roster, man. That is an awesome position to be in, because that tells me you could probably go out and get 3 quality players to add to this team on top of the draft picks we come out with, man. Like that is a really good football move. Like I hate to say this, I don't really care about the draft next year. The cap space next year. I'll worry about that when that comes up. They find a way to do it. The Saints were $70 million over the cap 2 years ago and still signed a quarterback for $20 million. I don't give a shit about the cap next year. Like, build the best team you can this year. Give yourself the best odds, and then if you have to make decisions next year, the one thing I'll say that I'm shocked it's not done yet, because I thought it would be done, is the Christian Wilkins contract. I thought it'd be done before the draft, and it's not yet. And maybe that's something they get done tomorrow, but I have to think they're probably more focused on the draft at this point. We heard they were getting closer. I haven't heard crap about it since, so I don't know.
All right, guys, we're going to get into it here. We're going to get into some Devon Achane stuff, some running back talk, and then another interesting note, and then into our mock draft. So 450 of you in the room, please smash the like button. Subscribe if you are new. All right, let's start off with this. Let's start off because everyone knows I've been talking about this kid for months. One of my biggest man crushes at that running back position, Devon Achane out of Texas A&M.
Brilliant player.
I had him ranked really highly on my big board. So this came out a couple of days ago from Barry Jackson, and it said, among interesting Dolphins decisions on Friday night 2 of the draft, if there's a running back they really like who's available at 51 or 84, do they pick him? Or do they prioritize greater positions of need and wait to see if the Vikings part with Dalvin Cook, who also interests them? There's no firm indication what the Vikings will do with Cook. Trade discussions with Miami earlier this offseason did not result in a deal, partly because the teams didn't agree on draft pick compensation. But the Dolphins continually have been linked to Alabama's Jahmyr Gibbs, who is rated by most as the second best back in this draft to Texas' Bijan Robinson. Though many expect Gibbs to be selected before Miami's first-round pick, NBC's Peter King said Monday, if there was some way to climb into the 20s to nab explosive back Jahmyr Gibbs, Coach Mike McDaniel would love to do it. We hear the Dolphins also like Texas A&M running back Devon Achane and also have spent considerable time with him in the past 2 weeks, according to an Aggie source. At the NFL Combine, Achane ran a blazing 4.32 in the 40-yard dash, 5'9", 188 pounds, averaged 7 yards per carry on 130 rushing attempts in 2021 and 5.6 on 196 carries last season. As a receiver, he caught 65 passes for 554 yards in 3 seasons. All right, so a couple things to break down here. Let's start off. Number one, Devon Achane, the player. Huge fan. I think he plays at like 4.2 speed on the field. I think that kid's special. Like, Ryan Roberts said, Raheem Mostert. I see more of like if he puts some weight on, he still can grow into his body. I could see I see Austin Eckler minus the stoutness to his frame. You know what I mean? What are your opinions of Devon Achane, the player? Because everyone knows I'm high on him.
I love him. He's number 37 overall on my big board. So to me, if they took him at 51, I give that a plus 14 value. So that whenever you're getting pluses, that's a positive. And this is how I grade it. If you don't care about my draft board, it is what it is. But that's really, really good value. He's got a lot of speed. I can see what you're saying with like the kind of the Eckler comparison, the way he moves. But he definitely is very unique in the way that he runs because he has tremendous burst and he's a tough runner too. He is. He doesn't always go down on first contact. Like he can churn yards after contact. I love Devon Achane, and I think he's a stud. And Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, look, Jahmyr Gibbs is number 7 on my board. I actually personally probably would take him over Dalvin Cook if I'm being honest, because of you're not going to have to pay $10 million a year, and I think there's less tread. Obviously, I love Jahmyr Gibbs. I have a hard time seeing Miami trading up into the first round because they're probably going to have to give up a number 2 next year, and I think Miami needs to settle their roster by having draft picks next year. But I'm sure they're interested in them. And, we also know they've been talking about Kenny McIntosh in top 30 minutes. What I think this all is, Reason, if you're asking me honest.
I'd say even with the health concerns, I'd take Sean Tucker every day and twice on Sundays over Kenny McIntosh.
Well, I think this is a little wink at the Minnesota Vikings. And they're saying, you see what we're doing?
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. Are the Miami Dolphins, because, I've talked about it and I think we've talked about it, that it really felt like the whole cutting Dalvin Cook thing felt like they were posturing and wanted something better from the Miami Dolphins in terms of compensation. Do you view this? Because I do. I do. You've used this as their way of posturing back, because all of a sudden after the Dalvin Cook, all of a sudden we've heard they're so interested in Jahmyr Gibbs, they're willing to trade up in the first round coincidentally right after Greer mentioned getting first round calls. And then now we're hearing, they've spent considerable time with Devon Achane. So now they're posturing plan A and plan B to the media. And that seems way too obvious with how they work, So
I'm with you, Reason. I think that they've circled and starred Dalvin Cook as the guy they want. And that's not to say that if one of those guys is there, if Jahmyr Gibbs is there at 51, the Miami Dolphins will take him if they don't have Dalvin Cook under contract. And I don't blame them, right? That's highway robbery. A plus 44 value on my board would be amazing. But what I think they're saying is you can prevent us from going that route. We're probably your best suitor for Dalvin Cook. You don't have that much leverage. You say you don't have any cap space. You're going to have to sign your draft class. You get $9 million by labeling him a Pros 1 cut. If you trade him to us, we can negotiate a new deal with him, make Dalvin and the Dolphins happy. Where is your leverage? And if that trade doesn't happen by the time the Dolphins are number 51, and there is a guy there that they want, but even more so at 84 later that same night, maybe they say our needs are too big at tight end offensive line to take one here. But if Devon Achane is there at pick 8 in round 384, whatever that pick is, I mean, dude, you make that pick 10 out of 10 times. And if you leave with Sam LaPorta and Devon Achane, you're getting an A+ from me.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's a good problem to have, I think.
No, I agree.
We're looking at running backs, and that's clear.
It's
status quo is not what we're trying to do. We like Mostert, we like Wilson. We want them.
They're all on short-term deals that are easy for us to get out of.
Right. We want to have a complete backfield. We want to have Jeff Wilson does the dirty work. Mostert's a good veteran who is running hard when the games mattered most at the end of the season when he got healthy. But he missed time due to injury. You need a contingency plan. Yep. We need a more elusive speed guy who can make people miss in the open field, who can hit home runs. The guys that we're talking to, Dalvin, Gibbs, and Achane, all three of those guys do that in spades.
Yeah. All right, before we get into our mock draft, something I know everyone wants to hear our thoughts on, because I haven't given my thoughts on it on the channel yet, but veteran offensive lineman Cameron Fleming, who started 61 games in a 9-year career, visited with the Dolphins this week. He's among a select group of veterans the Dolphins have considered signing to supplement Austin Jackson at right tackle. Dolphins general manager Chris Greer said last week that the expectation is that Jackson will be the Dolphins starting right tackle. Look at how he put expectation in quotes. Jackson was a team starter at the position heading into last season, played in only 2 games because of an ankle injuries. Dolphins are expected to add a veteran right tackle eventually, and Fleming remains a possibility. So, listen, Barry Jackson responded to my thread on Twitter. You know, this just continues to me. You know, Brandon Shell is a proven commodity in this offense. They told him to sit on his hands. Cam Fleming, you can pretty much tell they told him to sit on his hands. It continues to reek of me at like 51. They're waiting to see how that board falls. We know they love Matthew Bergeron, and I wouldn't be surprised, given the character issues with DeJuan Jones, if they had Matt Bergeron higher on their board than DeJuan Jones. I would not be shocked, because he can play guard or both tackle positions. What's your opinion? Because this, again, reeks to me of they want to see how this draft plays out, especially at tackle, Neil. Yeah. And if they draft a guy at 51, even 84, good luck to you, good sir, Austin Jackson, because that's Frank Smith and that's Mike McDaniel picking their guy.
I think this is a very telling little development here, because what I think the conversation they're probably having with Cameron Fleming is, if we don't get the guy we want in the draft, we're coming to you. And when you think about the context of the Dolphins roster, offensive line's paramount, right? Like, literally, there's a question mark about every player on the line. Armstead's his health. Robert Hunt and Connor Williams are 1-year deals. Austin Jackson and Liam Eichenberg, they're Liam Eichenberg and Austin Jackson. Like, that's not going to change, right? So what that tells me is that when you have 5 question marks, you got to write a few of them. I think we could say Connor Williams and Robert Hunt are not question marks for this football season. They'll be stars on this line, and they'll probably both be a top 10 of their position. So that's good. Armstead, when he's on the field, right, he is an elite left tackle. You mentioned a name that I think a lot of people should go and do some due diligence on. It's Matthew Bergeron, for this reason. He can play left tackle, he can play right tackle, he can play left guard, he can play right guard. That is huge in this offensive line. I think he will play early as a left guard, kind of like we saw with Laramie Tunsil. And then I think if Armstead goes down, he can easily kick out and be left tackle. He's a big, strong cat with good feet. Like, I think Matt Bergeron is a guy that's not getting enough attention as a potential pick for 51 for the Dolphins, because he is a really good football player, man.
Yeah.
He does a lot of things really well.
And we've heard him for the whole process. Basically, since draft season started, Neil, that's a name I know I've heard consistently.
Well, think about this reason. If we take Matthew Bergeron at 51, and our line's Armstead, Bergeron, Connor Williams, Robert Hunt with Austin Jackson, and then we have Kendall Lamb, Liam Eichenberg, and
Cam Fleming.
Cam Fleming is depth, and what's the guy with the cool mullet? Dan Feeney. Those are your four backup linemen, and then that's a pretty good unit. You know what I mean? That's a better unit than we've had. And I like Bergeron because he's a young guy that's going to be here. the more I'll be honest. I did my mock because I thought this position was a need, and I thought with my heart probably a little bit more than I thought with my head. But I think the Dolphins are thinking offensive line early, and I think they got guys that they like early. I think they got guys they like late, and I think they got guys they like that might not get drafted at all. And we saw that article a couple weeks ago you posted about they've talked to offensive line that might go undrafted. I believe personally one of those guys is LSU's Anthony Bradford because they spent a lot of time with him. Like there are guys, they're watching the offensive line, and they're doing their due diligence as well. But I'm with you, Reason. I think line's there for the taking.
Yeah, like some UDFAs Barry reported on is they talked to cornerback from Elon, Cole Coleman, Cal Poly receiver Chris Coleman, Hawaii running back Dedrick Parson, and Hawaii guard Micah Vanterpool. And Vanterpool did not allow a sack last season. And there's been a couple other names floating around in terms of like UDFAs that have gone around. And I mean, it seems like, wide receiver, defensive tackle, edge, they're really sniffing around, multiple UDFA positions. It seems like they're going to add a lot of UDFAs, but let's get into this. We got 500 people here. Let's get into our no simulator 3-round handpicked mock draft. We're going to go first round, Neal, then we'll switch to my first round, and then I'll do my second round, and then we'll do Neal's second round. And then we'll do Neal's third round and my third round. We'll switch it up. So we'll go back and forth for round 1 and 2 and 3. So we'll start off with your round 1, Neal. All right. And let's start off with that. And hey, listen, you don't got to do in-depth explanation of every player, but tell us the interesting moves and tell us the interesting picks for you. But here is Neal's first round of our final 3-round mock draft.
Right. And obviously you want to get as many of these picks correct as possible. But the real thing of this show is what you're hearing, where players are going, what teams you think are good fits to get, the kind of the connections to what team needs are, what are team tendencies, and kind of get them out there. I mean, obviously it looks really heavily that Bryce Young is going to be the pick for Carolina. I truly do believe that Houston's not going quarterback. I think DeMeco Ryans is trying to get a stamp and make the defense his. And I think Will Anderson's a guy. He's my number 1 overall player, 8 to 10 sack guy per year. He might not have that elite explosive traits, but he's just a productive football player. I think Arizona's going to get stuck in no man's land and not be able to trade this pick. And they're probably going to look at Paris Johnson, the offensive tackle from Ohio State. But I think they need to add pass rusher. And there's a lot of people that like Tyree Wilson's traits. I don't hate Tyree Wilson, but I think as a top 10 pick is a major reach. If I could probably do this over again, I'd probably have Will Levis going to the Colts because everything I hear that's going to happen. But I do think they might, be intrigued by CJ Stroud. Jalen Carter at 5 is an absolute steal. He is an absolute game changer, wrecking ball. Whatever off-field things exist, I think they'll go away. And the Seahawks have been able to show that they'll draft a risk. Devin Weatherspoon, a lot of people view him as the best corner in the draft. He's my number 2, but he really fits that Lions mold. I don't believe the Raiders are sold on Jimmy G. I think that was their plan B when they figured out they couldn't get Aaron Rodgers, and they will try to get Anthony Richardson's tools. Nolan Smith, a good football player, very smart, got very good traits, reminds me a lot of the Eagles' Hassan Reddick. I think this is really rich for him, but I've heard a lot of rumblings that the Falcons are looking at Bijan Robinson and Nolan Smith. Paris Johnson, the Bears were unable to land that offensive tackle for their offense. They get left jet tackle Paris Johnson here, who has a lot of versatility, probably the most polished NFL-ready player along the offensive line. Look, I have Bijan going here, and that doesn't fit the Eagles' tendency, but, man, Reason I haven't found a guy that doesn't have Bijan Robinson as a top 5 player in this draft. So he's just so damn good. A backfield with him and Hurts with that receiving core would be scary. The Titans are done with Malik Willis and Ryan Tannehill. They can't make that any more of a known commodity. So Will Levis, big arm, an absolute howitzer of an arm. You won't see that type of arm strength come out in next year's draft. Just unbelievable traits. Hopefully he gets protection there. This is a tough pick, Texans, but Christian Gonzalez, man, he's my number one corner. Pairing him with Derek Stingley would give them a good defensive tandem, and love. And then you got D'Amico adding two stud defenders to his defense. Jackson Smith-Njigba, he's the only receiver that I would want in the first round in this entire draft. He's not explosive, but man, he can make plays and get open. And it's obvious the Packers are building around Jordan Love. I hate this pick, but Darnell Wright just makes me think New England Patriots. In 2 to 3 years, we're going to be talking about one of the best right tackles in football. Jets going Broderick Jones at 15 here. I mean, they're going to do everything they can do to fix that offensive line and build a wall in front of Aaron Rodgers, because if he goes down, good Lord, that trade looks even worse. 16 here. Commanders, I almost gave him Joey Porter Jr. here, but Skoronski to me has the look of like a guy like Brandon Scherf, who Washington did draft before. He'll probably start his career inside, but he has ability. Maybe his arm length and athleticism isn't what you want, but I trust his technique. He's refined, so I think there. NFL bloodlines with Joey Porter at 17 to the Steelers. I mean, he's a tall, rangy, physical guy that fits the Steelers mold and fits a big need. Lions at 18 go Lucas Van Ness. The guy didn't get a lot of snaps in college, but there's a lot of traits, kind of a little bit of J.J. Watt vibes that I see in his game. I know that's pretty high praise, but I think he's a development guy that gets on the field early as a pass rusher. Anthony Harrison, Anton Harrison. I mean, the Bucs offensive line, they're kicking Tristan Wirfs over to the left side. That fills a huge hole on the right side. I think he can get in there. Miles Murphy kind of looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane a little bit to me. Has the athletic profile, scouts salivate over, but we haven't seen it all come together. But, Seahawks adding him and Jalen Carter to the defensive line would really boost that unit overall. I think the Chargers are going to look to add speed to the receiving core. They almost parted ways with Keenan Allen. They add Zay Flowers, who's explosive, probably can thrive in the slot, give Herbert another weapon. The Ravens are doing a lot of homework on cornerbacks. Marcus Peters, the unrestricted free agent. Deontay Banks, the local product from Maryland, has a lot of traits. He reminds me a lot of a guy they drafted once named Jimmy Smith out of Colorado. You have Jordan Addison in Minnesota. Look, they lost Adam Thielen. Justin Jefferson can be good as he wants, but he's going to see double teams all year. And one of the ways to pull that off is to bring some talent across from him, right? Addison looked a little light, but the guy gets open. He's fluid, and, he catches the ball pretty seamlessly. Brian Branch, I think, is a top 15 player in this draft. Love him, versatile chess piece in the defensive backfield. Jacksonville needs that. I have Steve Avila going much higher than everyone else. I kind of was tipped that don't be surprised if he goes in the last quarter of the first round. I think he kind of fits the mold of a player the Giants want, and they definitely need some help in the interior. Dallas, they lost Dalton Schultz. Schultz was a huge part of their success, especially in the red zone. Michael Mayer, to me, is the best tight end in this draft class. That's an absolute steal. Look, Bills lost Tremaine Edmonds. They need to get, they need another linebacker to pair with Matt Milano. Jack Campbell is just a freak athlete, student of the game, high football IQ, fits. The Bengals, look, the rich get richer in terms of offensive weapons. Dalton Kincaid is he's an elite pass catcher at tight end. If he stays healthy, I mean, this could be a rookie of the year candidate. The Saints lost Marcus Davenport. Will McDonald is a player from Iowa State, getting a lot of buzz heading into the draft. Kalijah Kancey, undersized, but just a pure disruptor, fits the Eagles mold. And to wrap up my round one, and dude, that's like a Micro Machine commercial back when I was a little kid. But Quentin Johnston, I think the Chiefs need some size in their pass catching threats. Quentin Johnston, he gives them that. I know Todd McShay calls him the pterodactyl because of his reach and ability to kind of high point the ball. I'd like to see him be a little bit more aggressive in high pointing the ball and going after it. But I think you could see him, Valdez Spalding, and Sky Moore kind of being that receiving core with Kadarius Toney moving forward.
So not a lot of movement in Neal's first round. And I got to say, Neal, I was smiling during some of that because that was the first time I really took in your first round here. And me and you, it's crazy. We have a lot of the same, even if we didn't get the same player, we were drafting the same position, just different players.
Right.
It's kind of crazy while I was watching that you go through that first round there. So with that said, I guess
let's see yours.
Let's get into my first round here.
You mind if you show me yours, right?
So number one, I think obviously Bryce Young. I mean, the guy shut down every other visit, and then you come out, you got the Carolina Panthers saying what they say today. Listen, I think he's obviously the best passer, but size is always going to be a concern. Number two, and I think we're both going to be wrong here. I think it's going to end up being Tyree Wilson. If I could go back and change one thing, I'd have Tyree Wilson here because I, like you, have Will Anderson as the best edge player and one of the best players in this draft. Well, by the way, thanks, because you basically gave all the scouting reports, so I don't got to say much about the players because we got a lot of the same players going in the first, other than a few names. For me too, number three, you'll notice the arrows. I got the Raiders trading up from 7. Listen, I originally had them eyeing Anthony Richardson like you did. And then I thought to myself, would Josh McDaniels like Anthony Richardson? And with the current talk about slipping for CJ Stroud, I just feel like a guy who can't make plays outside of the pocket, that's Josh McDaniels outside. A guy who sticks to the structure, right? Everyone, CJ Stroud, it's not known, can he play outside the structure? Well, guess what? Josh McDaniels doesn't want you to play outside of the structure, so CJ Stroud is perfect for him. Number 4, I think this is just a match made in heaven. Will Levis. Now, could the Raiders trade up to 3 and take Will Levis instead of Stroud? Sure, 110%. Number 5, you had Jalen Carter here too, I think, right?
Yep, did.
I think this is a marriage. I mean, it just makes so much freaking sense. And Jalen Carter, said it before, I'll say it again, best interior prospect I've seen come out since Ndamukong Suh.
I believe that.
Like you, have Christian Gonzalez as my CB1. And I've heard rumblings recently that the Lions actually favor Christian Gonzalez, and his combine was out of this world. So I think that's moving off of Jeff Okudah has clearly opened it up. You went for Witherspoon. I'm going for Gonzalez here. Cardinals get back and they get Tyree Wilson. Might have to settle for Will Anderson in real time, but same thing. Number 8, I got the Falcons going off the board here and going Anthony Richardson. Have we even heard them support Desmond Ridder in public yet? I don't think so. Anthony Richardson, I think, adds a dynamic little flavor to that team. And hey, if they want to roll with Desmond for one more year, knock yourselves out. Number 9, you had Paris Johnson Jr. I got Darnell Wright because I've heard there's teams that want to kick him potentially to left tackle. I think Darnell Wright is the best tackle in this class.
He can pull that off.
Yeah. Number 10, I got the same pick. Well, so we'll probably end up being wrong. Bijan Robinson.
Yep.
It just makes too much sense. 11, JSN is going at 11 for me. I mean, what do they have after A.J. Brown? And I don't see them. Look at how my quarterbacks have fallen right now. Do I see them reaching for a quarterback here at 11 now? No. So JSN makes a lot of sense for me. And then, listen, I mean, it's not good news when you look at the weaponry in Houston right now. And the TCU boy stays local. Quinn Johnston to the Texans. Number 13, this is probably my first shock selection of the draft. Green Bay takes Dalton Kincaid. JSN's gone. Quentin Johnston's gone. Do I see them taking a Zay Flowers here? No, but he goes after this. So Dalton Kincaid at number 13. At 14, Zay Flowers. Those ties have been pretty strong. They could go Paris Johnson here or Broderick Jones, but Zay Flowers, apparently Belichick loves the guy. So let's see how that goes. Number 15, Paris Johnson to the Jets. I mean, the track record with tackles recently hasn't worked out, but Paris Johnson is one of those high floor guys in this draft, I think. Number 16, I think this is a match that Commander fans would absolutely lose their mind if they got this. They would be in love. Broderick Jones. Hey, dude, I don't know if there's a tackle as mean as this man in the draft. And for as little as experience as he has, might be one of the best guys in open space in this draft. Broderick Jones, it might be special in a year or two. 17, look at, you had Joey Porter. You went Bloodlines. I went Devon Witherspoon in the CB2. 18, Brian Breesy. 19, I have a trade. The Ravens continue to try and please Lamar Jackson. They go and get Jordan Addison to try and round out that room with Bateman and OBJ.
And they did have a top 30 visit with him.
And by the way, what's going on with OBJ in that assault? Because maybe there's even more of a need here.
Yeah.
So right here I have is Ravens trade number 22 and number 86 for 19. And FYI, the Raiders, they traded 738 and a 2024 first to move up 4 spots.
Okay.
I went by the Johnson chart.
Yep.
Okay. And both teams overpaid a little bit. Number 20, Deonte Banks. I mean, have you looked at the depth chart for the Seattle Seahawks on defense? Have you looked at what they have at corner? Deonte Banks from Neal's alma mater. That's an upgrade they desperately need. Number 21, I got them taking Peter Skoronski here, the Chargers, to slot and kicking inside next to Rashawn Slater, finishing off the offensive line for Herbert.
I love Peter Skoronski, man.
So do I. I think he's a tackle, but I think they can move him to guard here. And then him and Rashawn, that's one of the best left sides in football.
Yeah, I saw one guy say that actually he reminds him as a guard of Zach Martin from Dallas, which is very high praise.
Yeah, so I think that's just continue to protect the asset, right?
Right.
Michael Mayer, 22. I mean, what do they got going on right now at Tampa and tight end right now? And Baker needs some help. Michael Mayer, he's my first tight end off the board. Joey Porter, Bloodlines, Flores, corner, makes too much sense, brother. All right. Number 24, I think we have the same, don't we here?
Yep.
Brian Branch, same. I don't got to explain it. I think the kid's a stud. I think he's a top 15 talent, but he's dropping just because of needs. 25, me and you, same idea, different results, right? You had Avila. I got Cyrus Torrance here. Number 26 now, Michael Mayer's off the board. They could use interior defensive line help, and Kalijah Kancey's a guy who can play all over that front for them. All right, so I think that's a great pick. Now, same idea, different result. Drew Sanders. Why did I take Drew Sanders? You know why, Neal? How hard have they been trying to hit on edge rushers in Buffalo for that long? And this guy gives you the Tremaine Edmonds. He can play him in the middle of the field, or you can rush him off the line of scrimmage. He offers you a lot at the line of scrimmage. That's why I had them taking Drew Sanders over Jack Campbell. 28, Emmanuel Forbes. They need corner help. I have Nolan Smith dropping all the way to 29, as you can see here.
Probably where he belongs, to be honest.
To the Saints, yeah.
I think teams are getting a little too high on him. You know, he's a good football player, but you know, I think he's getting pushed up.
And then you had Kalijah Kancey at 30, right?
Yep.
Mazzy Smith, because Kalijah's gone for me. So same idea. And then number 31, I mean, they continue to add. They've been hitting on defenders over in Kansas City the past couple of drafts. Lucas Van Ness, I don't think will be much different. Who'd you have at 31?
Quentin Johnston.
Okay, yeah. So I have Lucas dropping a bit farther and Nolan than you, but I got a couple trades in that first round. So let's get into your second round, Neal.
Yeah, and I won't hit on every pick like we just did, but I'll hit the highlight every few.
Oh, I thought you meant like actually hit in real life. No one's expecting us to hit in real life.
If I hit every pick in the second round, man, I'm buying lottery tickets every day. But you know, so in the second round, like Steelers, you know, first round they got Joey Porter Jr. They need to fix that line. Osiris Torrance to me is a top 20 player in the draft, just interior lineman fall. You know, I think one thing that stands out is Hendon Hooker, number 33 to Houston here. To me, they need to lead the draft with one quarterback. I think that is a guy that they'll have his eyes on. I think D'Amico will like him. Falling down just a couple picks here. Seattle at 37, getting John Michael Schmitz, best pure center in this draft. An absolute home run of a pick with Charles Cross and Abe Lucas last year. What a way to shore up your line. Mozzie Smith here at 38. Mozzie Smith is one of the best defensive tackles to come out in quite some time, too. Some red flags, but this would be a stud finding right here for him. Then we have Keely Ringo at 44 to Atlanta.
Hold on. You break our hearts with the Jets and you just skip over it, brother.
Well,
come on.
Honestly, well, the one thing that's wrong is that should be the Green Bay Packers at 42. The Packers would be getting Darnell Washington there.
Because you predicted the Rodgers trade.
Right. So that would be, that would be.
So you have the Packers getting Darnell Washington there.
Yep. So he won't be in our division. But no, I think that's where he falls, man. I think that's where he deserves to go. He's a good player, though, man. Look, like we said on this show many times, go get your guy. Keely Ringo at 44, man. I don't know if you'll see anyone higher than him, than me. I have him as my 6th overall player. I actually think he can move to free safety if needed as well. Arizona has really dialed in their secondary this offseason with Jesse Bates, AJ Terrell. I just think he's a versatile piece there that can play. Breaking our hearts is Jahmyr Gibbs.
There you go. Oh,
here to New England. Just a totally different, unique running style from Ramondre Stevenson. I would hate this actually more than any pick in the draft, but I think it's something that could happen. Trenton Simpson is a guy 2 years ago, if he would have came out, would have probably been a top 20 pick. But, he's undersized, but he's very athletic. He's the modern day linebacker. He can coverage. He can blitz. I think the pick that everyone sees right here is Sam LaPorta, the Miami Dolphins at 51. A mix between Owen Daniels and Mark Andrews, a nuanced route runner, savvy, catches the ball well. He can block better than advertised. The perfect fit for what the Dolphins are looking for at tight end. I would be more than ecstatic with that. You'll see Jonathan Mingo at 55 for the Lions. A couple of their receivers just got suspended for 5 games. Mingo is a guy who's got a lot of buzz heading into the draft. He's going to go higher than this. I'm wrong. He'll be going higher. Matthew Bergeron, we mentioned him earlier to Jacksonville. They already got Brandon Scherf there. They have Cam Robinson. They did lose Jawan Taylor, though. So adding a player like Bergeron, even though they have Walker Little, that they can put the best 5 guys out there. Dallas, they have Tony Pollard, but Zach Charbonnet is that power runner between the tackles that will do a really job, giving them a good 1-2 punch. And I think that we can end with Blake Freeland, Kansas City, developmental guy, freaky traits. Don't think he's a day one starter, but I do think after losing Orlando Brown Jr., right, they did go out and get Jawan Taylor, but their right tackle also signed with Washington. So they like to develop those offensive linemen. They've hit on guys like Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. I think, if you have Patrick Mahomes, you never have too many people protecting him.
So that is Neal's second round of his mock. Let's hop into my second round. And I got Anton Harrison going at the start, and I got a trade at 33. We got the same player going, but 2 different teams. I got Tennessee finally moving up. They trade number 41 and number 72 for number 33. They can cut Tannehill post June 1st and save around $27 million by doing so, and they get Hendon Hooker and they bring the hometown boy. Number 34, John Michael Smith, makes too much sense given their center just retired. They got no one in Arizona right now. Continuing on, listen, Jahmyr Gibbs at 36 here. LA, McVay drafts a running back every single year, even when he doesn't have a first-round pick, and they have a volatile relationship with Cam Akers. Makes way too much sense. Steve Avila at 37, I love here for Seattle, because that offensive line, they've been just knocking it out of the park over the past couple of drafts, with Cam Smith here with Arizona to round it out. Love it. Okay, so back-to-back here for the Jets. I got Luke Weipler, and I think they need a will, and Diane Henley matches what they're going to need there. Guess what? Anthony Richardson needs more than just Kyle Pitts to throw the football to. Josh Downs adds that. Jack Campbell at 47 to the Commanders, who quietly in my mock draft between Broderick Jones and Jack Campbell. What a draft.
Wow.
The Lions, who have taken in my draft thus far Christian Gonzalez and Brian Breesy add to it and take Darnell Washington because they got a void there after losing TJ Hawkinson. One of my man crushes, Keanu Benton. He goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Sam LaPorta, we wound up, look at, he fell. That's how the boards fall. Sam LaPorta at 51, dream come true. He is a Miami Dolphin. Now, would they pass on Matthew Bergeron? I don't know. Me and you both had receiver going to the Lions at 55. Difference between us was who the player was. Cedric Tillman goes ahead of Jonathan Mingo, who goes 2 spots later to the Giants. And mine, Luke Musgrave, they get their tight end. You had Mayer going in the first round, and they fill the void in the second round with Luke Musgrave. Keely Ringo drops to 59 to the Buffalo Bills, who have already added Drew Sanders. Tucker Kraft goes at 60 because there are rumblings. The Bengals are very interested in adding one of the top tight ends. And then I rounded it out with Antonio Johnson to the Kansas City Chiefs. They add some much-needed safety help after getting a little depleted in free agency with Juan Thornhill leaving.
Best safety in the draft besides Branch for me.
Yep. So, all right, let's get into the first image of your round 3 because we've got your final 7 picks are on a second image that we'll get to. Just tell me when you want me to pull it up. Okay.
Yeah. Awesome, man.
So here's 64 to 95 for, my bad. That was mine. Oh, well, no, we'll just start off with mine. Whatever. I brought it up. We might as well finish it and then I'll get to, you can round it off here. Okay. So at 64, there goes Matthew Bergeron right off the board. Trent Simpson falls a little bit to, talk about how, look at my Texans picks in this round, Neil. They come away Trent Simpson, Jake Haener, and Clark Phillips III at 65, 72, and 73. So you said earlier they needed to come away with a quarterback. I just have them taking Jake Haener, my quarterback 5, a little bit later on. Other interesting, here's another guard prospect I like. Chandler Zavala goes to the LA Rams. I think A.T. Perry is a nice sleeper pick to the Arizona Cardinals. Devon Achane in my mock goes 71 to be paired with Kamara because there's rumblings already this season about Kamara being traded, Neil. So where's that going to be next season? All right, next off season. The first time we're seeing Isaiah Foskey show up here, edge from Notre Dame. I got him going to Cleveland. Tyler Steen, the Auburn, Neil had them getting a tackle earlier on. I have them getting it at 76. Jordan Battle, another good safety. The Alabama kid goes to the Rams. Sidney Brown goes to the Packers. I think that's a great late value pick. Siaki Ika goes a few picks before us, made it a little bit difficult. Who falls to us? Listen, I have it was between DeMarvion Overshown or Zach Charbonnet for me here, and I went based off of I think Zach Charbonnet at 84 is better value than DeMarvion Overshown. And guess what? As of this mock draft, Neil, Dalvin Cook is not a Dolphin, so I owe him nothing. But he goes the very next pick because they need will help in LA. DeMarvion fits that. And similar defense, right? Eli Ricks, a sleeper pick going at 89 to the Giants. Tajay Spears, that's where they get there. I know you had them taking Zach Charbonnet at like 58. Yep. Well, I got taking Tajay Spears at 90. The strong draft for the Bills in my world continues with Javon Dexter at 91. And then let's get into, I think, a sleeper pick just because of how much he's played here. Michael Wilson at 93 to Carolina. Neil, he's flown under a lot of people's radar just because he hasn't played a lot of ball over the last couple seasons, right? And then the final picks in my third round are these. Nick Herberg to the Arizona Cardinals. Love that edge player out of Wisconsin. Corey Trice to the Commanders. Tank Bigsby, interesting pick here. You know why I picked him? He fills the role that Kareem Hunt left.
Right.
Wayne Morris goes to the San Francisco 49ers and fills the McGlinchey hole. And then they round it out with Riley Moss, Byron Young, and a stud of a defensive tackle. Zach Pickens goes to the Raiders. So, Neil, what do you think of that? Let's get into your third.
I think it's the 49ers, man. That's an awesome way to end day 2 with those 3 of the last 4 picks right there, on day 2. I mean, like, they don't have anything in the first or second round, but they could really clean up there at the end of the round.
It feels like cleaning up at the end of a fantasy draft, you know?
Yeah, it's good. All right, so I have a guy going at 64. That's probably, I know the scouts like him more than Draft Twitter does, and Dwayne McBride, powerful runner between the tackles. Keanu Benton at 66 to Arizona is an absolute steal. They continue to kind of bolster that defensive front, building the trenches. Couple of picks for the Broncos. Clark Phillips, ball hawk, gets his hands, picks off a lot of passes. Derek Hall's a pass rusher, getting a lot of attention. And number 70, Jalen Duncan from Raiders. He's a guy that if he fell to the Dolphins, I'd be all over him. I think he's going to be a better pro than collegiate player. There's 71. The Saints get Tucker Kraft, the tight end that we talked about, that I truly believe is on the Dolphins' radar. Deshaun Watson at 74 gets a weapon, and Tyler Scott. He didn't run at the combine to the speed that he kind of predicted, but he is fast on a football field. Tyler Steen to the Rams, like, he's a guy who's got a lot of momentum, and I was hoping that he'd be there at 84, but he just wasn't.
Can talk about you got the Texans taking Marvin Mims and Tank Dell within 7 picks of each other. You got them really bolstering that receiver room, eh?
Yeah, because I mean they got rid of Brandon Cooks, right? So the coverage pretty bad there. So they get 2 guys that are very dynamic pass catchers, speed threats,
and fill different roles, right? Yeah.
Try to replicate what the Dolphins are doing in Miami with Tyreek and Waddle to a sense. I think that would be kind of a good way to kind of building. I do have them adding Hendon Hooker, so they do get
yeah.
But kind of murderer's row right here. Josh Downs at 79. The only reason
I love that pick.
The only reason I have him here is because he's 5'8". Like, he's a great football player. I mean, he's going to be a better player than his size will let people believe. Jervin Dexter here to the Steelers just fits the mold of that mean, rugged guy in the defensive line. Look, this is a lot later than most people have Luke Musgraves. I think they're going to have people that have flags because of the injuries. But 84, the Dolphins, I did give them DeMarvion Overshown. I think this is Jerome Baker's, and I don't know what happened on the graphic, but they gave Overshown at 85 as well. I don't know who I had going there, but I think
I can tell you. Here, let me tell you. Go.
Overshown, I think this is Baker's last year in Miami, man. And I think you're going to see David Long, Overshown, kind of being those 2 linebackers in the middle. Overshown overlaps a lot of what Jerome Baker looks like. They met him at the combine, and then they went ahead and they did a top 30 visit with him. So they like him a lot. And then I got a couple guys at 87, 88 going back.
You got Byron Young. You got Byron Young, edge Tennessee at 85 to the Los Angeles Chargers. That's all my graphic guy.
Okay, all good. No, it's all good. Braden Daniels at Minnesota is a guy I know the Dolphins have looked. He's probably a better guard at the next level. Minnesota has a need there. Jacqueline Roy is a defensive tackle the Dolphins have done a lot of work on. Jacksonville needs some beef in the middle. At 91, the Bills, I gave them Israel Abanikanda. Absolute stud. And then this is probably the biggest steal of the draft for me is Devon Achane at 92. Again, I already said he was my 37th player. Running backs just fall, man, and it doesn't always make sense. Isaiah Foskey to Carolina to pair with Brian Burns. Foskey, a guy, because I saw you had him too, man. Like, he's my 26th overall player in this draft. I love him.
And yet we both have him dropping, and we're pretty high on him. Right? Crazy.
I'm doing these drafts with what I'm hearing where he's
and needs, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then sorry about that. Wanya Morris, right tackle. I think Lane Johnson's probably winding down his career, and that's a good fit there.
But look at how me and you both have him dropping Wanya Morris. We both have him in the same range, right?
Right.
We live,
and then we could click to the next one for the last few picks here.
Mm-hmm.
I see. Why is Neal drafted better for the Bills? I don't draft with bias, man. I got to give. It's
how the board falls. You draft as the board falls, man.
Yeah, but like you gave Tank Bigsby right on here. I see him as a really good power back in the next level. Arizona could use some, beef the back there. Then I got Noah Sewell, who's a guy that you probably saw in a lot of first rounds of mocks not long ago. He's kind of a one-trick pony where he plays the run well. Doesn't give you a lot in athleticism, but he could be a 2-down thumper for Cleveland. John Gaines kind of is the replacement for a guy they lost 2 years ago, Laken Tomlinson. I think he could be a left guard there. And then the 49ers close with Yaya Diaby from Louisville, pass rusher, kind of moving up boards, got violent hands, good off the edge. And then I saw you had this guy right around the same time, but Corey Trice, the cornerback, I think he's 6'3", has the size San Francisco covets for their secondary, and he's a guy who's got his stock is literally on the rise. He might go a lot sooner. The scouts love him, but that's kind of it. The 49ers going to get maybe 2 starters there at the end of the draft, depending on how we look at it. But that's a marathon. When you do 102 picks, it's a lot.
How long did that take you? Tell me, because that took me a good 4 or 5 hours to put together.
I did it an hour for the first round, an hour for the second round, but then the third round took me a little bit longer.
Yeah, the third round. Because, dude, the Houston picks and when the picks get bunched up for teams was like, oh, man.
Right. It's a lot. And I'll tell you, man, and I'm just being 100% honest, because I could probably do one more final mock with what I'm hearing, but I have mock draft fatigue, man. I am exhausted of big boards. I mean, I put out a 500 thing big board, and look, I'm honest, man. Some of those rankings on that big board are kind of what I've heard from others and saw, but I broke down at least 275 to 300 players. That's a lot of time commitment, man. The draft is fun. It's a hobby, but man, it doesn't come without work. If you care about it, you want to see things and my favorite thing about the draft is when you have a ranking for your positions, just say quarterback, and then you see somebody that has something that you didn't see and you go back and you see it. That's how you develop in scouts. These guys that are GMs and scouts, this is what they do for their primary job. They get, they move up the chain of command. It's not easy, man. You're talking about you have to hit in round 1. You should hit every time in round 2 and 3, and then you got to go find gems in the later rounds. It is not an easy exercise, but what I want to make sure is Reason when we have our show, we're educating our listeners, but it's not like we're dictating and lecturing them. I love their feedback. I look at I take third and fourth looks at players all the time. There's guys that I'll look at and I think I love, and then I see other people at the same position, and I'm like, well, you know what? I was way too high on that guy. The guy that I was way too low on is Sam LaPorta. I have him probably 20 spots lower than I would if I did a big board today. But it's one of those things that
it's fluid.
It works itself out. But hey, man, we are really 2 sleeps away from round 1. And I actually enjoy round 1 when the Dolphins aren't picking. I'll be honest. I still like it, but I'm not look, when the Dolphins are drafting, man, I'm stressed out. I'm pretty sure I had a small aneurysm when we took Charles Harris. I was very, very devastated. And I wanted Reuben Foster with that pick. So he was a good player, but fizzled out pretty quick too. But I've seen the news about trading back in. I have a hard time believing that's going to be Miami's play here, man. I don't know if you think so, but I think they're content with 51, and I think if they have to move up 10 spots to get a guy
moving back, if anything, they'd want more picks.
But that's what I'm saying. If they get to their board and 3 of the 4 guys that they love are there, and they can move back 6 spots, 7 spots, and pick up a 3rd or 4th round pick, I think they'll do that. And I think that's savvy. But all these projections, none of this matters, because as soon as you get to pick 4 or 5 and Seattle says, you know what, we'll take Anthony Richardson, and then Jalen Carter falls, and then someone else falls, as a domino, right? They all fall, and it's a crapshoot. That's what makes it fun. What I get excited about is after day 1 on Thursday, because I'll kind of recalibrate my board. Then you'll see, because then you count, from pick 32 to 51. So you need to have 19 players, and you can start to see who the Dolphins are going to have
who's in their range. Right. That's why people have been asking me lately, who do you think they're taking? I said, man, I'll be able to let you know come day 2, before day 2 starts. I'll have a good idea of who's in their range and who you should be rooting for.
Yeah. So. If I had to whittle it down to 3 players today, it'd be Sam LaPorta, Steve Avila if he falls, and Matthew Bergeron. I think those are 3 guys. Now, look, I like Jahmyr Gibbs. I like Darnell Washington. I just don't see them being there at 51. So if they move up, correct me. I just think if they stick at pick 51, one of those three guys I mentioned is going to be their pick: Avila, Bergeron, or LaPorta.
Yeah. All right, guys. I'm going to be back tomorrow night with Richmond Webb and Mr. Ballgame. We'll be doing a episode of the Finish Line Thursday. It'll be round one of the of the real draft. No more mocks. Friday, night 2, and we'll have a panel. Neal will be dropping in periodically. And so night 2 we'll have a panel. So we got a lot of stuff coming up for you guys in terms of draft stuff. Listen, can't wait to do this next week, man. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this team is shaped, even after 4 picks in a draft next week. So until next time, guys, stay happy, healthy, safe, and blessed. Fins up all day, every day, everyone.